A cool, overcast afternoon at Circuit of the Americas is welcoming the opening round of the 2020 GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Kramer, joined by Calvin Fish, Ryan Marine down in pit lane. And to look here at some of the iconic corners of this Formula One caliber circuit, everybody loves to come and race. That is why this championship opens here once again this year. That was turn 11. And then we've got pit lane as we're getting ready to go for the start of this race. The GT3 machinery is ready to go. We've got a mix of new Evo cars and cars that have not yet quite been upgraded, but everybody has been running incredibly quickly. And I think, Calvin Fish, the big story is class realignment.
Yeah, we no longer have a pro-pro combination allowed in this championship. It's going to be pro-am, essentially going for the overall victory. We do, however, have the silver-silver combination, and there's a very stout one in this field here. They'll be starting from the front row with Shelby Blackstock alongside Trent Hinman. So they potentially could get the overall win, and we still have the AM class. But when you look at the field, Greg, the stellar lineup that we have with these pro lineups with Jerome Bleekemolen, Hinman, Baptista, Cosmo, Marcelli, Colin Brown, Ryan Dial, Jeff Westphal, some stellar names. And then you look at the AM entry as well, some guys who are really on top of their game. It should make for a sensational season.
I think it's going to, absolutely. And taking a look at some of what we've been seeing, this is Fred Poordad, and they're going to be coming kind of off of the back foot just a little bit. This is the Wright Motorsports entry. There was some rain in qualifying that surprised everybody. It caught Fred out, and the car at the exit at the last turn here shot across the track, got into the wall. Team's got it fixed. He's got a very fast young man in Max Root as his teammate. This is the car, though, that starts on pole.
Yeah, James Safronis just got out there and just tried to wrestle that Porsche around in these very tricky, slick conditions here this morning. Got the fastest time, and it was all about survival, but just trying to lean on the car, trying to get some energy into those P0s on a very slick racetrack. Very cold this morning as well, so I think it surprised everyone. This will be good to watch here because Martin Fuentes' team with Rodrigo Baptista, kind of a late entry to the championship season, but potentially they could be very much in amongst it once again. And Martin has had so many victories over the last handful of years in various classes, but this year he's teamed up in Pro-Am with Rodrigo Baptista, a young man who won here last year for the K-Pax Bentley squad.
I think this alignment with that Pro-Am being the top class has created some really interesting driver pairings for sure. This is one that remains unchanged from last year in the Steve Cameron Racing BMW of San Francisco, a BMW, and it is Greg Leafoge, who we know is very, very fast, and Henry Schmidt, who just continues to improve every time we see him race. Here's the Bentley, and it's the lone Bentley running this season, at least on North American soil. But what a great pairing in this one. Patrick Byrne, a real up-and-coming guy, and Guy Cosmo.
Yeah, they really work well together. They've been working together for about 3 or 4 seasons now. Won an Asian Le Mans Series Championship in prototype competition, making the move here to GT competition on a full-time basis. And with the K-Pax Bentley squad, you know they're going to be tough over the course of the season. Didn't have the best of mornings, but we'll see what can happen here in the race conditions this afternoon.
Yeah, that's true. In this class, or in this qualifying session for this race, Patrick put it 4th overall, 3rd in the Pro-Am class. So they've got an opportunity here. And here's the the number 1 entry. They get to carry the number 1 because, you know, they were the AM champion last year, and the defending champion, the number 80, who would be the top Pro-Am car in this one, they said, no, we like number 80. So they offered the number 1 to the Ferrari, and they jumped on it. This is an interesting program here. The 2 Vital Speed cars won the AM combination in the hands of the Beck and sorry about that. We're going to pause for just a moment here. We'll get back with that story on Vital Speed in just a minute. All right, continuing on what we were talking about here, the number 6, the AM entry of Mark Issa and Rich Beck, and then the Pro-Am entry of Trevor Beck, that's Rich's son, and a very talented driver in Jeff Westphal. And again, an opportunity for Trevor to learn an awful lot. Rich and Trevor ran as a father-son pairing, lone car last year. That program's expanded.
Yeah, it really has. Great to see them back. I mean, Ferrari lead the brigade with 4 entries in the championship this year, and those Vital Speed cars expect to be very much in the mix. Jeff Westphal, one of the top talents we have in the current in the country right now. So he's a very busy boy, running in 4 different championships this year. So I think to see great things from him, full-time entries for both cars. So lots to anticipate.
Just saw that number 80 of Martin Barkey and Kyle Marcelli, the Racers Edge Motorsports car, the drivers' champions from last year in the Pro-Am category, back to defend. There is the number 20 machine. That is the Porsche we talked about, Fred Bourdais and Max Root. And their work cut out for them just a little bit coming up through the pack. So that is going to be a very busy piece of tarmac we are looking at in just a little bit. One of the iconic sections of the beautiful circuit of the Americas. And at this point, let's get down into pit lane, check in with our pitmaster, Ryan Marine.
Hey, Greg, thank you very much. I've got Max Root here. Safe to say qualifying didn't go the way Wright Motorsports hoped earlier this morning. You alluded to the accident that did cause some damage, Max. First of all, an update on the car as Fred's about to pull out on track for the formation lap.
Yeah, we were able to get the car back together after a bit of a shunt in qualifying, but you know, the right guys are amazing and they put everything back together, so we should kind of see what the car has for us this afternoon and race as hard as we can from the back.
The Wright team has a ton of experience, but just one GT3 start between the 2 drivers in this car. That was you. You've got 1 under your belt. First one for Fred. What are the emotions, the nerves going into the start of this new season?
Yeah, no, I mean, this car's amazing and I'm really fortunate to be driving it, so I'm super excited. Can't wait for my stint to come, and I know he feels the same way, so we'll get rolling here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of people mighty impressed with Max Root.
Yeah, he actually did a test for Porsche at Sebring last weekend, ran through a bunch of cars and was very impressive there. He also did the World Endurance Championship, a rookie test at Bahrain back in 2019. A lot of talent there. I think everyone's looking to see how he steps up to this form of competition. The pedigree is good, so but this is a whole new platform for him.
And as you can see, we're showing you the starting lineup here, and a couple of other programs. The number 24 Ferrari is the TR3 entry, running an unusual number. They usually have had that 31 in the past. And Ziad Gandour is moving over from the Ferrari Challenge, and Matteo Cressoni, who is just an absolute top ace in Ferraris. Certainly, that's going to be a platform that'll be interesting to watch. Here you take a look at the number 6 entry. We talked about that. Mark Issa, also from Ferrari Challenge, making this a full season focus this year, team with Rich Beck. And a couple of the other cars we haven't seen yet are talked about. The 33 of Windward Racing, the father-son duo of Bryce and Russell Ward are going to be key players as this one unfolds as well. And then, of course, the addition of the silver class to this championship, and there's only one of that pairing here. Pretty good one as they start outside of the front row, Cal.
Outside of the front row for this, pole for the race tomorrow here with Trent Hidmans securing that top spot for the second run of the weekend. So that's going to be the real question mark here. The Pro-Am, everyone thought, well, this will allow the Pro-Am combinations to go for the overall win, but the silver category, if you get the right silver lineup, they can be awfully tough to beat. We'll have to see how that plays out here this weekend. Racers Edge, second entry this year. 2-car operation now coming off the Pro-Am Championship win. Can they go one better this year?
Lights are out on the safety vehicle, so we are going to be going green this time by. Again, 90-minute race format. This part of it hasn't changed at all. 90 minutes, the pit stop, driver change, fuel, tires.
Yeah, that pit stop window happens 40 minutes in and has to be completed 50 minutes into the race with 40 minutes to go. Mandatory driver change, mandatory 4-tire change, and minimum pit stop delta is 80 seconds from pit in to pit out, including the service.
You go underneath that by more than a second, it's a drive-through. You go over it by more than 3-4 seconds, bad stop. That simple.
It is. Execution is really key. You're looking for hundreds and tenths on the racetrack, and you can lose a bundle of seconds by misstepping there on pit lane.
Lights are out on the safety vehicle. We are going to be going racing here at Circuit of the Americas, round one of the GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. James Safronis, the blue and white Porsche, on the pole. On his outside shoulder, Shelby Blackstock in the Racer's Edge Acura, and a hungry field behind them. And looking for the green, we go green, and a very aggressive move by Ziad Gandour in that number 24 TR3 Ferrari, and then goes straight down to the apex. Safronis coming through. How did they not touch, Cal?
That was incredible. 3 abreast there into the apex for turn 1, but Safronis comes out on top, followed by Shelby Blackstock in the number 93 NSX Acura. But Gandour, a great opening run there. Look to the inside, he was thinking about the lead, so obviously he's got the confidence in his race car. So you see George Curbstone, the CrowdStrike AMG Mercedes, slots into the 4th position.
The guy who lost a bit on the start, Patrick Byrne, went from 4th to 6th. So he's going to have some work cut out for him here. And Gandour, I had the pleasure of announcing a few of the Ferrari Challenge races that he ran in. And he has no issues with being aggressive and going after it. He loves his racing.
Oh, and he's down to the inside there. I'm not sure if he got to the ABS or whatever and just decided to try and get it down at the apex, but certainly pushing really hard on this opening lap. Feeling the pressure now from behind by Martin Fuentes.
Yeah, Fuentes getting a stout run as well on the 04. That's the DXDT Racing CrowdStrike Mercedes. And all of that action behind them has allowed these two leaders to open up a bit of a gap. And again, Gandour really, really shallow entries into these turns.
Yeah, he really is. And there you see Patrick Byrne in the Bentley just trying to get some tire temperature underneath that car. Is really kind of the tires on the longer run, but that hurt you in these slightly cooler conditions that we anticipated here today in Austin, Texas.
This will be a little bit of an interesting dynamic because all of the Ferraris here, as I understand, are not the new Evo that was just released yet. 2 of the 3 Mercedes are. And then the Porsches, of course, are the Evo that was introduced last year and are very, very race-proven. Should be an interesting mix.
Well, this scrap for 3rd has really allowed the 2 leaders to just take off. Safronis continues to lead. Blackstock is all over the rear bumper of that Porsche.
And a huge wiggle from Patrick Byrne in that green Bentley, just turning in right there from Capex Racing. Lap 1 is in the books. And yeah, a massive margin up front on 1 lap of about 2.8 seconds, Cal.
Patrick Byrne starting to make the moves there in a position of battle, but here comes the lead, is up into turn 1. Safronis protects Blackstock to the inside, trying to get the power down, squirms away there as he accelerates side by side through 2 for the lead.
Oh, and what happens at 3? Blackstock's got the inside, but Safronis, is he going to try and fight the outside? He does, but as a result ends up going way behind the curbing. And that's going to get the immediate attention of the stewards. They'll make a judgment on whether he was helped there or not. But certainly is pretty fierce racing at this stage, and he hangs on to the lead behind him. Gandour has actually looked like he's been able to ease away just a smidge from Martin Fuentes.
Well, those track limits are all about gaining an advantage, and you could say, well, he still had his nose ahead, but it really kept the position, so that's a tough one for the stewards here. It's a steward's nightmare here at this racetrack with the runoff area that are available to the drivers to take advantage of, but just a great battle up front.
And we'll see here now on this long run from 11 down to 12. It's undulating, it climbs and twists just a little bit. Which car, if either, has a little bit better legs? They look awfully even, Cal.
They really do, and behind them, Gandour has settled in nicely. He seems to have found a rhythm and got the gap now to settle in and start to hit his marks a little bit better in that 3rd position in the TR3 Racing Ferrari. But the battle up front is intense. James Safronis, 200+ starts, 27th year of racing in World Challenge competition. He's still got the mustard. He's up front.
Behind these guys, that battle with Byrne and Kurtz has been heating up just a little bit too here, as I think finally Patrick Byrne able, I don't know whether he just didn't get any the temp he wanted in those tires as fast as he was hoping for. In this class, you can run on heated tires that can sit in a warmer, but sometimes it's still just not quite where you want it.
No, they still have to get the energy in them. It certainly helps you give that initial grip up front here. Safronis doing a really nice job. I do believe that Blackstock may have a little bit more pace in that race car if he can get around him. Pass for 3rd. Fuentes up to 3rd. 2 Ferraris battling it out for that podium position currently.
Oh, and look at this again now. Blackstock attacks, gets to the throttle, is going to try that same deal, and this time James just swings way over to blunt that move.
Safronis doesn't want to give it up, does he? He
Sure
is
doesn't.
fighting hard to keep the lead of this race.
And then Fuentes sits in third, but the margin after 2 laps, Cal, 4 seconds. That's all that duking and battling that Fuentes, Gondor, Kurtz, and Byrne did in the early laps.
I think for James Safronis, you'd be thinking, if he was thinking big picture in the championship, how feisty would you be in the opening laps of a championship season? We do not believe that James is going to be doing the full season, so he's out for the glory here at Circuit of the Americas here this weekend. He's going to be a fighter, but for all he's got Jerome Bleekemolen going to take over the reins of this Porsche a little bit later in this race.
Ooh, and look at Gondor thinking about going straight to the apex once again. The only problem is you do that here into turn 11, it really compromises your exit. You can see Fuentes immediately gets a car length, now 2, as he starts to accelerate away. Then it's Kurtz and Byrne. And this time George Kurtz defending a little bit. Patrick had a good run on him into 12 last time, and I think this time Kurtz said, I'm just going to move over before he does, just to dissuade him a little bit. And then Martin Barkey just sitting back there in that white number 80.
It's a brand new race car, the 04 machine. They only received it about a week ago over from Mercedes-AMG in Germany. But it is turnkey. Oh, Kurtz there, a little bobble there as he comes through this really tight, twisty section. Triple apexer here. Puts a heavy load on those left side tires. You can see the track has been resurfaced in various parts around this racetrack where it was suffering from a lot of rain that they had in previous winters here. A lot of heaving in the racetrack. A lot of bumps had developed. They're smoothed out nicely.
Great section of track here. Ooh, Kurtz a little wide there. And that's that turn 19. And we were told in the driver's briefings that that was a corner they were going to really watch for track limits. And nobody wants to have to deal with these track limits. It's just the nature of this track. It's just going to happen here, isn't it?
It is. They just give it a lot of runoff room everywhere, and a driver can take advantage of that. If you're twitching around and you're trying to catch the car.
I think we had Blackstock go through for the lead, Cal.
Yeah, that is a pass that he's got around Safronis. So Safronis has been vigorously defending that lead, but he has to give it up to the young Shelby Blackstock. And now I wouldn't be surprised to see Shelby stretch this lead a little bit. His car seems to have really good pace, good grip underneath him. Let's see what he can do with it. First time in a GT3 car in race competition. He's doing a nice job.
He sure is. And let's keep in mind, again, Blackstock and his co-driver Trent Hinman running the silver class. So for James, that's kind of a tough thing to do. Yes, you want the overall, but you also want to have a win on the weekend. And just how hard do you push to hang on to that overall here? Again, look at Gondor.
It's a strange line down in there because you've now got a lot of steering input. That means you cannot get back to power without igniting that traction control coming off the corner, which really doesn't give you the same acceleration. So the electronic age will let you get away with some of the lines that he had as driving, but it's not the optimum way around this racetrack, I don't feel.
And I would think that's got to put a lot of strain on those, on that right front tire as well. And again, there you see the really shallow entry. And I wonder if, you know, Ferrari challenged that. He has done a lot of his racing and they don't have the aids necessarily at that level, and the ABS here is just unreal in these cars. And if he's just trying to figure that out still, you think?
Well, possibly, and you know, maybe just you know, he's under a lot of pressure. He's been throwing himself in right at the deep end, at the front end of this race. First time out of the gate, you know, just making that move from Ferrari challenge. So, you know, I think he just needs to calm it down a little bit, just think about hitting his marks, and he'll be a bit more effective with his lap times, because now he's allowed Martin Fuentes to drive away a little bit in that third position.
And Kurtz, oh, is Gondor going way wide, and Kurtz got a nice run, and he is now skied underneath and picks that spot up, and Patrick Byrne going to try and get after it as well. Here comes Gondor, so he wants to get back by. This is going to be 3 abreast by the time we get up into turn number 1, Cal.
Yeah, and you got to be careful here, because suddenly you get engrossed in your own little battle there, and I'm not sure that Ziad really saw Patrick having the run to his flank there. High speed there as you make that climb up into turn 1.
When those 3 were going after it, Martin Barkey closed up dramatically. So this battle, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th is on. See how that shapes out here. Very early in the going here at Circuit of the Americas in this first round of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Acura, with Bentley Motorsport, and with Ferrari. Here's that battle we were talking about, and look at that, Martin Barkey getting the run. He's coming up right alongside Patrick Byrne, and he might even be able to do something here. He's got those lights flashing. See if he can get Gonder at the same time. He's at least got inside Byrne, or has he?
Well, he doesn't quite clear him. I think the Bentley's pretty stout on the straightaways, so you have to clear him, and right behind them, Bryce Waters having a nice run here, and that Windward HTB.
Ooh,
touch there, but between Barkey and Byrne just loosens him up enough, and maybe he loses 2 possessions. No, he defends, comes back at the Windward Racing Machine. Tight quarters here, very tight technical section of the racetrack, this third sector. This is turns 15, 16, 17, 18, that triple apex right-handed they're in right now.
This is bringing Trevor Beck right up into the battle in that Vital Speed machine. Yellow car with the blue stripe. The Pro-Am car has the blue stripe on the right side. The Am car on the left side. Look at this. Ward. Oh! Patrick Byrne, I don't know if he realized Ward was coming after him and turned in, and there was just enough of a touch to get Byrne to go around, Cal.
There was. He lit him up and just did a little dance there to get him back, pointed in the right direction, but that may draw a penalty. Definitely turned him there, just a little aggressive there. It's a tough one to get it done. He was a little bit late with that move. You can sometimes get it done if someone's wide or losing time through the exit turn 19, but probably wasn't the opportunity he was looking for.
So Ward now has dropped back a bit as well, and as a result, you've got the number 63 of David Askew, the DXDT Usalco Mercedes, has gone through, as has Henry Schmidt, the BMW San Francisco Stephen Cameron Racing BMW. There's David.
Yeah, he's another driver who's you know, really learning his craft nicely. An avid sailor, along with his brother, had a lot of success on these 70-foot yachts, but had a big incident here this year, but didn't deter him. He was back up on the horse, so to speak. So love his enthusiasm for the sport. He's got a great team that he's built around him. He's got a great co-driver and experience in Ryan Dial, so they expect great things this year.
From everything we've seen already this season, that Mercedes-AMG Evo is a great car. So that's a pretty good package for this Pro-Am category here, to be sure. Here it is, David Askew, currently running in the 6th spot overall, or excuse me, the 8th spot overall, 7th in Pro-Am. But he's got Henry Schmidt chasing, and then Bryce Ward rounding out the top 10. In the very early going here at Circuit of the Americas. Shelby Blackstock not only has gone to the lead, he has opened up a bit of a margin here. He probably has an over 3 second, almost 4 seconds of a lead right now over James Sofronis in this battle at the front of this field, with Fuentes in the Ferrari covering in 3rd. And Ryan Marine, everybody knows Trent Hinman is awfully fast in these Acuras, but he's got to be impressed with what he's seeing his teammate doing here.
Yeah, if everyone knows Trent, I'm pretty sure everyone will know Shelby Blackstock here pretty soon. Trent, the guys in the booth were commenting, pretty impressive GT3 debut from your teammate. He's got a lot of driving experience, but not in this car.
Man, everybody should know Shelby. He's more famous than me, that's for damn sure. But no, you know, so far, Shelby and I have been friends for 10 years or so. We both got into Skip Barber around the same time, and, you know, went through the open wheel ranks for quite some time together. So, I mean, when this program was announced to drive the Race Edge Motorsports Acura NSX, it was pretty seamless. We knew each other for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. We've been teammates before in the past, but never actually co-driving together. So seeing what he's doing out there, I think is just, you know, awesome testament to Honda's, you know, and Acura's sort of in-house ladder system between TCR and now GT3 with the NSX. He fit in seamlessly right away, and we're seeing that on track right now.
I'd say you must be good friends. I understand you had a pretty lengthy road trip, the two of you, to get here. And if you survived the drive from LA to Austin, what, 22 hours in a car together, you must get along all right.
I think he wanted to kill me at a couple points, you know. It was an awesome experience. I mean, we drove just a bone stock NSX, which I think happens to be our base car here this weekend, all the way from LA to Austin. And I mean, it couldn't be better. It was a super comfortable car. Everything about it was great, but you know, it was a good team building experience, really. It was good to be able to talk about what we need to do in order to show up here in Cota and try to bring Races Edge Motorsports and Acura home a couple wins.
Wish you the best of luck when you hop in the car. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, he is a very quick driver to be sure for him, but a 2:07.249 lap for Blackstock. Closest is Fuentes and a half second off at that guy.
Yeah, well, you could sense that, you know, certainly looking at the dynamic of the car and that battle for the lead initially between Sofronis and Blackstock, that potentially Shelby had a lot more pace, and he's now delivered that and opened up the gap to almost 5 seconds. So this is perfect for the team now to really just execute a good, clean pit stop. You know, Henman will be up on the wheel. He is an ace as well. So you talk about Shelby being a superstar. Shelby's mum is certainly a superstar. For people who don't know, she's the country singer Reba McEntire. So even though they share a different surname, that is his mum.
And he is one serious lad when it comes to his racing, that's for sure. And Fuentes, and watching this gal, he's trimming that margin to Sofronis just a little bit. His last couple of laps have been about a half second quicker than James at this point. And look at that margin from Fuentes now back to George Kurtz. He and Barkey have gone around Gondor, obviously. And Kurtz, he's had success at this track in GT4 equipment. And I think now that they've got a year under their belts here with this team of him driving a GT3 car with Colin Brown, even though it's an Evo, it's still similar, it's got to help.
I think it does, and I expect a big year from that group. I think Colin has so much pace. We've seen it before in prototype machinery, and I think now he's starting to fine-tune his GT driving skills as well. George is the perfect partner. They've got a great team behind them. They've got the latest equipment, all of the ingredients there for a big 2020 season.
Right now, George running 4th overall, 3rd in the Pro-Am category, and this is a good battle here. Leia Fouge and Henry Schmidt and Bryce Ward going at it here. The BMW and the older generation, if you will, of their Mercedes-AMG GT3 car. That's the battle for 9th and 10th. Ward had it, Schmidt just got it.
Yeah, that was close there.
Yes,
they missed each other as they came through turn 13 there. Just a great battle all the way through this field. And this is what we anticipated with this more Pro-Am lineup here in this championship this year, that you're going to see some excellent racing. It's certainly showcasing itself so far today.
Interesting to see if the pace of these two in this battle that they're putting on here is going to allow them to get a little bit closer to Askew and 7 of Trevor Beck. See him just up the road right there. This could very quickly become a nice 4-car scrap.
To Steve Cameron, who runs that BMW for Henry Schmidt and Greg Leofouge, he said, we've just been really working on the drivability in terms of the power down ability and the way the lag works on that turbo motor in that BMW to be a bit more effective this season. He said, we're making gains on it, but there's still some development work we can do. With Clay Filson, who operates within several of the BMW customer racing teams, he has a lot of experience dating back to the Bobby Rahal IndyCar days, success back in the mid-'80s, so he is an ace man to have in your camp.
Here's the green Bentley of Patrick Byrne, the number 8. That is the number 6 Vital Speed Ferrari of Mark Issa. And of course, Byrne having that spin earlier. Did a little bit of contact. He's trying to fight his way back up through the field. Issa currently leading in the AM category. And the Vital Speed Ferrari he shares with Rich Beck. And then Poor Dad in the number 20 Porsche and the 73 Park Place Porsche of David Ducote round out the top 3 in the AM category.
Patrick was unlucky to get bumped, but lucky that he didn't have any damage with a number of cars right around him in that incident exiting turn 20. So it's just a question of trying to stay patient here, rebound a little bit, try and pick off some of these drivers right in front of as he moves to the inside there on the Vital Speed Ferrari down in the brake zone for turn 12. And they really need a yellow to get back in the game. The gap to the lead is just way too much for even Guy Cosmo to jump in this car and make up. So they need a bit of help here with some kind of caution or hiccup for the others.
And then following what's going on here is just looking at the times of Askew and Schmidt on that last lap, running almost 4/10 faster than Askew. Ward running a little bit slower than Askew at this stage. So you see, like you said, how that shapes out here. And I'm guessing that they got on the radio to Issa and just said, this isn't in your class. Don't fight him, let him go. You're leading in your category. Let's protect that. Let's work with what we've got.
Good point. I mean, sometimes you just get carried away with the battle that you're in, as we now focus in on Martin Barkey, coming off that Pro-Am Championship with Carl Marcelli last year. 3 victories on the year, 2 overall poles, including one here. Won the second race here, in fact. They just had a tremendous battle with the real-time racing team, who are no longer competing here this year, with Dane Cameron leading the charge alongside Brett Curtis and Mike Hedlund. Great to see Mike back in our paddock at some time this year. I know he's always evaluating programs, but what a performance he put in last year, a number of times, leading overall, and grabbing that big win on home turf at Road America for the real-time racing squad.
Class pole, his first time ever in the car at Sonoma. I mean, it was just an impressive go here, but in the end, it was this team, the Racers Edge team, that were able to get it done for their drivers in terms of that championship. Interesting here, Ziad Gandour, as I said, he comes out of Ferrari Challenge, but he's done GT3 Cup racing in the Middle East. He's done stuff, and somehow when he was doing rallying earlier in his life, he picked up the nickname Z-Hog and seems to enjoy people referring to him as Z-Hog.
Certainly had an impressive opening lap. He was not shy, was he? Let's put it that way, and defended vigorously there. Settled down now. Martin is doing a nice job. Been the top 5 overall, 4th in Pro-Am. Carl Marcelli, the Canadian driver, is going to be up on the wheel here when he gets aboard that number 80. He will open in about 15 minutes or so.
David Askew doing a nice job here, closing it up on the yellow Ferrari of young Trevor Beck. Askew doing a nice job. And Fuentes now, that margin to Sofronis had dipped down to underneath 2 seconds, and then Sofronis just found a little bit of speed and got it at about 2 seconds at this stage. So as we watch this battle, let's check in with Ryan down in pit lane.
Thank you, Greg. Rodrigo Baptista stands with me. We're used to, after the last few years, seeing you racing against Ferraris in this series. Now you're racing in a Ferrari. How has the transition gone? How comfortable are you with the car and the team here in race 1?
Yeah, it's a bit different for me. You know, it's my first time driving against the Bentley, against Capex, so it's a bit different. But I drove the Ferrari last year at Le Mans, and the car is pretty similar. So I'm confident with the car. I think we have a good team, and Martin is doing a great job.
He is. He's running 3rd at the moment. What do you know about how the car is handling so far for when your stint comes?
Martin said the car is good, so I hope it's really good. So I think we can fight at least for the win in Pro-Am.
One of the big conversations coming into this weekend, Pirelli brought a new tire to the championship. What has it been like so far adapting to that tire with also a new car?
The tire is almost the same as last year. I think they changed just a little bit the tire, but it happened, I think, 2 years ago, the same thing, so it's not a big change. And yeah, the car is the big difference for me this weekend, but I'm happy with the car.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Ryan. And yeah, he's got to be pleased with what he's seeing with Martin Fuentes right now, staying right with the Pro-Am leader, only a couple of seconds adrift, and keeping him well in sight here at Circuit of the Americas. Blackstock leads now by almost 8 seconds, Cal. That is a big, big margin. Sofronis second, leading in Pro-Am. Fuentes and Kurtz 1, 2, 3 in the Pro-Am category. But Martin in that Hublot Ferrari, he just continues to impress, doesn't he?
He really does, and I think, you know, talking to Rodrigo there with Ryan down on pit lane, I think they feel that they have a legitimate shot at the Pro-Am victory. I think the big question mark coming into the season was, how would this silver-silver combination play out? Well, Blackstock has the lead. He's going to turn it over to Trent Hinman, who's as fast as anyone in this field. So they're going to be tough to beat this afternoon. But I think Rodrigo Baptista, when he climbs aboard this #1 Hublot Ferrari, firmly believes that he can maybe chase down that 14 Porsche for the Pro-Am win.
And the interesting thing is those pit stops as well can certainly play a little bit of a dynamic. And if you have any kind of a hiccup in that pit stop, that big margin that you have might evaporate, or the deficit you have to somebody might evaporate. So there's a lot to deal with here, isn't there?
Yeah, there really is. There's a lot of factors to come into play. The one thing is you can really abuse these tires right now because your co-driver is going to get a fresh set of Pirelli P0s to slap on during this pit stop exchange. So don't leave anything on the table. Certainly for Sofronis, he doesn't want to leave that margin any closer than it is right now between he and that Ferrari that's chasing him, and give his teammates Ron Blinkman a little bit of a chance here. They've also got Brad Kettler engineering the car this weekend. Brad is had so much experience in sports car racing over the years. Has been involved and integrated in the 6 victories at Le Mans over the years, primarily with the Champion Racing team, but also the Audi factory squad with Team Yost. So just a ton of experience there. And we're not sure how much this GMG Porsche is going to be in our championship this year, but they'd love to try and grab a win here in the opening round.
Oh, they absolutely would. And last lap, not this one that we're just completing, but the previous one, when Fuentes went through the 16, 17, 18 triple apex right-hander, front end of the car gave up just a little bit, and he had to make a couple of corrections, and it cost him about 0.7 of a second. And that margin went to 2.7 seconds, and now James able to find a good lap again, and that margin is up to over 3.2. And I think it's Martin is just doing everything he can to try and keep it close here.
This racetrack is so technical. If you start to try and chase and you start to overdrive a little bit, you see lap times plummet in the wrong direction. So it's all about discipline, and Martin just staying on top of his emotions here and just letting the race car and the racetrack come to him a little bit.
Well, as the old adage goes, I've heard it from driver coaches in racing schools: slow down, go faster, because it lets you reset that mental picture. And sometimes it's all that needs to happen. Great battles unfolding throughout here in this field as we are watching right now. A really good drive by Bryce Ward. He is the father of the father-son combination of the 33 Windward Racing. The silver Mercedes has worked his way up to and now around David Askew in the black Mercedes that is right behind him. Ward is finding some pace. The question is will he get to Trevor Beck? And if you look at the speeds he's been running, looks like he might just do that.
He seems like he's got almost a second in hand in terms of that last lap, but they're pretty evenly matched over the course of the event. But it seems like that Mercedes is a little bit quicker. It's a big operation now. They've taken over the HTP organization from Europe, so it's HTP and Windward working together. They've got big programs, big plans for this coming season. They're anticipating running up to 60 races globally with their various programs, so that's a lot to undertake, but they're very excited about that.
Well, that's a huge program, isn't it?
Yeah, I spoke to Bryce yesterday, and he just said, yeah, we're very excited. We get great technical support from Mercedes AMG, and he said HTP is some of the best in the business. Christian Hohenadel, who ran here in the States last year, has now moved over to a more managerial role to focus this team forward.
Well, they're doing a great job here, to be sure, and Patrick Byrne has caught this group now in the number 8 Bentley from Capex. His recovery drive. There he is.
We know this car is quick. Capex won one of the races here last year, so the Bentley has speed around this racetrack, certainly in dry conditions. So Patrick got tapped here a few minutes ago and got spun around, lost a lot of ground, but he's settled in nicely. He's just really hitting his marks, and if he can focus on this little group in front of him and maybe clear at least 1 or 2 of them before Guy Cosmo jumps aboard, that should put them in good shape for the rest of the race.
Just looked for a second there like he was going to try and do something around the outside of Askew. Tucks back in as they drop down through 1, now through 2, and head into this turn 3. And this section is a section where you got to carry speed through it, obviously, but you've got to be a little bit patient, because if you throw it in too much and you get out of sync and rhythm, it costs you huge chunks of time.
It really can, and it's pretty hard on the tires as well. You're just really leaning on the outside tire a lot through those various corners, and you just got to manage that. If you start to overdrive the car's just going to go away on you. But this Bentley is the new generation. They switched to it for last year, of course, in 2019, because it's got better weight distribution than the old models. The second-gen car, a little less edgy, so it should make the car feel a lot more comfortable through those high-speed S's.
team actually got that new generation Bentley GT3, the Continental GT3, its first win internationally right here at Circuit of the Americas.
Seems like Patrick's being super patient, not making any aggressive moves. And they really feel they're in this championship for the big picture. So it's just a question of recovery and managing damage limitation here at this stage of the game with that quick spin that he suffered early on. Team one of the best in terms of strategy and making the right call. So Thomas Blam and the whole group there at K-Pax will be trying to figure a way to get this 8 car back in the mix.
He certainly looks, right now he looks like he's relatively easily able to stay with Askew. He's not really asking too much of the car.
I think he's got more pace
right
potentially. It's just clearing him. And,
big thing for them right now is when it's a 48-second deficit to the front of the field. So that's where need a little bit of help here.
oh, Askew really deep there. Almost got into the side of Ward there as they exited turn 1. Askew is definitely up on the wheel. I think those winter races have really got him coming into this season feeling very confident in the car underneath him. That will pay dividends through the course of this season.
That Winter Invitational was for bronze-only drivers, and it was to come and get extra track time, hone racecraft, whatever you needed to do. And he took full advantage of it. Brought Ryan Dial with him, and Ryan said one of the things we worked on was, you know, aside from everything about just driving the car fast and racecraft, was managing race weekend stress. And, you know, that's a big component of it as well. If you can be calm and focused as you get in that car, that's going to pay big dividends for you. And I think we're seeing a real improvement here in David Askew just generally. I mean, he's just focused.
He really is, but Patrick's got a good run on him here. He just needs to dive to the inside here. I think just gets out of a little bit early there, so I'm not sure if he's got any braking issues with that Bentley right now, but gave up quite a bit there into the brake zone. The Bentley seems to have good straightaway speed still. Not a huge advantage, but certainly a little bit of an edge compared to the cars that he's around right now.
And just to give you an idea of just how strong a run Shelby Blackstock is putting in here, that margin's over 8 seconds right now.
But look at Sofronis's last lap, his best lap of the day so far, a 2:07.4. So maybe he's just been biding his time here. 7 minutes before that pit lane window opens. So what can James Sofronis do to try and minimize that gap to the leader over those last few minutes before he turns it over to Jerome Bleekemolen?
Fuentes, again, he's just pushing so hard. I think he's seeing Sofronis get farther and farther down the road, and he's pushing really hard. And it looks like he's just carrying a little bit too much pace through some of the S's here. You can see him, it just gets you a little out of sync, out of rhythm, and can really be problematic. Boy, ask you if he can square up and come underneath, get to the throttle sooner here. And he couldn't quite get that done.
I think for Martin, they may have overshot the tire pressures possibly, or lost the balance a little bit in the long green flag run that we're encountering right here. So he certainly doesn't have the edge that he was showcasing in the first half of his stint. It's all part of the learning process. Particularly with this new tires, a little bit different. General Peter been really pleased with his performance. He was certainly getting innovative with some of these lines and potential moves, but that's allowed Patrick Byrne to get a run. They come into this brake zone. They all need to be careful here.
No, Byrne has a huge opportunity here to square up and go to throttle. Yeah, he's going to get one of them by the exit. Look at that.
Yeah, Bryce almost had to touch the brakes there, I think, coming off. Otherwise, he felt there was going to be contact. So, nice move there by David Askew, getting the position, but it's allowed Patrick to get through as well.
And Patrick was able to get to the throttle even sooner. Look at this, he's up along the outside here. He knew David was going to defend.
His braking performance seemed good there that time,
yeah,
Patrick.
Sure.
Not quite sure why he doesn't follow the draft and try and tuck it down at the inside and use some of the ABS to get it to apex and get the position.
Yeah, maybe he's just sort of studying, watching, trying to figure out where he can do it as clean as possible, but if you've got the speed, obviously, you don't just want to be laying back and waiting. You want to be able to get up there and go after it just a little bit.
I think you have to go on the attack. I mean, you need to be disciplined with it, but you need to go on the attack. You've got to try and minimize the damage here and try and get as close to the leaders as you can and try and gain a spot or two before the pit stop exchange.
And that pit stop exchange, as you said, will be coming up here inside of the big bit of lockup from somebody there, but coming up inside of the next 5 minutes. And that can be a very decisive moment in the outcome of these 90-minute GT World Challenge America powered by AWS Sprint X races. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Lamborghini, with Mercedes-AMG, and with Porsche. And Patrick Byrne continues to pressure David Askew, and Askew, you can see he's very much now on the defensive just a little bit here. Byrne wasn't really close enough where David would have had to have defended and been that sort of shallow into that corner, but he opted to go there anyway. Is that maybe just what feels best for him right now, potentially?
Well, I think sometimes if you feel you've overshot the corner, the tendency is just try and get it down to the apex. You just don't want to run straight off the edge of the road and can't get it turned in. So I think it's almost like a default with the drivers, particularly with the car with ABS. You start to feel, okay, I've gotten a little bit deep. If I'm going to activate the ABS, let's at least get the car down to the apex of the corner. We're seeing it quite a bit in that corner, turn 11. A vital corner, of course, so you want to get off that corner with good acceleration on that back straightaway.
Askew doing everything he can to hang on here. Byrne trying to look for any opportunity to slice through.
This is a strong run for David Askew. I think they'll be pleased with his performance here today. He's got racy, he's made some moves. He hasn't cracked under pressure.
Beck, this little bit of battling here, he's been able to stretch that margin, this young man. Also came up through Ferrari Challenge. His dad was racing Ferrari Challenge when Trevor was doing a little bit of driving, and when he got to a point where they thought he might be ready, he hopped into the what they call the 458 Challenge class of Ferrari Challenge. Acquitted himself very well, very quickly, and they think he's got some, certainly he's got some potential here. And up the road a little bit from Trevor is Ziad Gandour. But this battle is just so compelling right now, trying to watch as Askew defends. This is like a chess match, isn't it?
It is, particularly around this racetrack. There's multiple lines you can run. You can get side by side in a number of corners. Doesn't always mean you got the move made. And typically you do on a normal circuit, but this is a very unique racing facility. Again, David there protecting that inside line. Patrick just needs to try and set this up. I'm just not quite understanding why Patrick won't make the move to the inside down into the brake zone, which is the typical passing zone here on this race circuit.
Well, often you're right. Oftentimes he gets the drive off of 11, and just right there. Maybe that time wasn't quite close enough, but he's been closer a couple of times, and an opportunity for him to just slice through. But I guess he's taking a while to study the opponent before he pounces. Up front, Shelby Blackstock continuing to be impressive here, stretching his margin up to 9 seconds right now in the Racer's Edge number 93 Acura NSX GT3. And he'll be soon turning over to Trent Hinman to take to the finish here. And he hasn't put a foot wrong in this race. I mean, he was aggressive off the start, hounded James Safronis, got to the front, and has just driven away, Cal.
He has, but he was smart with it. He didn't get overly aggressive. He didn't get any body contact, didn't damage the race car. And once he got to the front, he just got the hammer down. But Safronis is not going away. He's been running lap times equal or better than Shelby in the last 2 or 3 turns around the racetrack, so the gap is somewhat stabilized, which is good news for Jerome Bleekemolen, and he'll be jumping aboard the GMG number 14 Porsche here. But James Sofronis, so much experience in this championship, 27th year of racing in this form of competition, over 200 starts. He showcased that he's still got the fire in his belly in those opening laps today.
Oh, he did, and in qualifying. I mean, putting this thing on the overall pole was a pretty impressive run. And you talk about Bleekemolen that he'll be turning over to. Bleekemolen's chasing a interesting championship of his own, and just would like to get a win in a class because it pays pretty big points, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's running for the Global Porsche Cup this year. He's kind of made an effort to try and expand his horizons. He's always a busy driver, but sometimes bouncing around between different manufacturers. This year, his primary programs are all in Porsche, so he scores points wherever he's running. They're weighted differently depending on the form of competition and the intensity of the competition, but he wants to try and win that for the first time at the end of this season. Last year went to Alan Brynjolfsson, who was a regular competitor here in SRO last year, so congratulations to Alan and everyone involved in his program last year. Trent Hinman was his regular teammate, of course, as we now see pit window open. First man jumping in is Martin Fuentes.
I think with the way that that car was handling, I think he may be, and the team certainly might be thinking, look, let's get a repressurized set of tires on there and put Baptista in there and see what we can do here and hope for something to develop. So Martin, first one in as the window is open.
80 seconds is the minimum pit stop time. You are allowed a 1 second joker only once per weekend. So in either of the races here this weekend, you can be up to 1 second beneath that.
In theory, you should be able to do the tire change, the driver change, the refueling with a margin in that time of a window, but one little glitch on something, it just eats up that time in a hurry.
It really does, and like with anything in life, once it starts to go wrong, panic sets in, but it should be a nice, comfortable pit stop time. You can see the fresh sticker Pirelli B0s going on. Rodrigo should be strapped in and ready to go, and then they're just looking at the clock, making sure they don't get underneath that minimum delta.
Number of cars in right now, 8 in total have made their way down into pit lane.
This is not unusual with the Pro-Am category. Typically your AM is starting. That would mean you want to get your potentially faster driver in as soon as you can.
Oh, long stop for Fuentes.
6 seconds outside of the minimum there, so that was not well executed because the servicing was done easily. They just mistimed it a little bit. Interesting to see how they handle this between Blackstock and Hinman. Decide to keep Matt a little bit longer. I think they're pretty even on pace, even though Trent has a lot more experience in this car. You think that he should have a few tenths in hand over Shelby at this stage of the game.
The nice thing for Shelby is, I mean, he has driven such a smooth race. It looks like he's taking care of his tires along with the pace he has. Why not go for it? Trevor Beck turning over to Westphal, about 0.6 of a second under, but they have what's called the Joker, don't they?
That's okay. If they do it again tomorrow, they're in trouble, but they're
Exactly.
okay today. Sofronis in. Dutchman, Jerome Bleekemolen going to be jumping on board.
George Kurtz turned over to Colin Brown. Pretty good stop, 1.7 seconds minimum. Barkey to Marcelli, huge, 9 seconds, almost 10. That's problematic.
Races Edge need to sharpen that up on their second car for when Blackstock is playing.
Yeah. Patrick Byrne to Cosmo, a good stop. And look at Fred Porthead to Max Ruth, 0.4 over the minimum. That's
Right Motorsports.
that's
getting
per,
it
yeah.
right. It's Brad Kettler with the stick on the radio. Now he's looking at his stopwatch.
Talked about it many times. When the car drops and sits for a few seconds, that's good. If the car drops and goes, usually means you're in trouble.
Yeah, that means you got your timing completely wrong or there was a delay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see how they do here. Ooh, that was not good. 85.8. It didn't look like the smoothest stop, did it? But
No.
The fact they sat there for another second or two, I thought they had time in hand.
I did too. So Blackstock has stayed out. Oh no. This is Cosmo.
Yeah, this is, well, we hate to call it cold tires because you're allowed tire warmers in GT competition, but outlap, I think it is for Guy Cosmo, has had a quick spin. Exiting turn 12. Just hasn't been the best of days coming into this season with so much potential. With the championship winning team, not from last year, but so much success over the years. And with Guy and Patrick's resume running together, you really felt that they were going to be up at the sharp end here today, but it hasn't quite worked out that way.
And they did a great stop, as that's something that Capex is known for. They've executed beautifully on their pit stops, and this one was pretty darn good. So that does leave you wondering just a little bit.
Colin Brown has leapfrogged around Rodrigo Baptista in that pit stop exchange. Here we're looking at it right there on the screen right now. Shown as a battle for fourth, but got to wait for all the timing and scoring to cycle through.
I liked how Baptista referenced that he had driven the Ferrari at Le Mans, so he had that experience with it. And he said, and it doesn't feel all that different on certain levels to the Bentley. So he said, I'm pretty comfortable in the car already.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those young drivers. He reminds me of Montoya. You know, just got that natural gift to be able to feel the grip and go fast in anything he drives.
Very good point.
On one of the races here last year, I mean, burst onto the scene back in 2017 in GTS competition with the Flying Lizard team, and they bumped him up to the K-Pac squad in the Bentleys. It was immediately impressive. He dominated that closing weekend at Walker's Glen in 2018. Just was on a different level.
Yes. Yeah, that was an impressive weekend, to be sure. He really did seem to click with the Bentley very, very quickly. Mark Issa had stayed out, got himself into second overall in the AM leading machine. Now he is down in the pit lane. And here now comes Blackstock.
Well, this is going to be the key. They just need a good clean stop. They don't need to be fighting for that last 10th or two, but they certainly need a good one within a second or two of the minimum pit stop delta. So John Meraki and his team from Racer's Edge just need to execute a good clean stop. And Hidman should be in great shape to take it to the front and maybe score another victory for the team.
Well, the team car stop was almost 10 seconds long, so. So far, this looks pretty smooth.
Two mechanics, one gun are allowed to do the mandatory tire change. Working together, just cycling around the car. He's away, so I'd assume they were over the number. So possibly not a brilliant start, but let's just see how many seconds they left on the table. They had a healthy lead coming in here, so as long as it's not a disaster, they should be okay.
I think this could be fairly decent, Cal. Watching it, I mean, obviously, the compression down pit lane, yeah. That's what they needed.
They used every second of it, didn't they?
They sure did.
Just the second outside, so nice, clean start. Should be in great shape as you see the field stream up the hill. There's Bleekemolen, Hinman already through turn one and on his way through the S's.
As you said, Colin Brown now up into the third spot, Baptista in fourth.
So Bleekemolen will be in a rhythm here pretty quickly, but I think Hinman will get up on the wheel as well. He's got so much experience now in this Acura NSX bundle of victories last year, including a GT3 championship here in North America. So he's got the confidence, he's got all the skills. Now it's just a question of bringing it home, not making a mistake, not running afoul of any back marker issues. There's still a lot of time left on the board, 40 minutes plus.
Relatively spread out as we look on our GPS tracking map here.
See these drivers feeling their way through the S's, just trying to climb those curbs and just pick up that small percentage of grip to just try and pull that front end through there more effectively. Out of turn 11. tires are really good right now. Fresh set of Pirelli P0s on these cars. So for the second driver, they've got good rubber to work with early in the stint. Track conditions are ideal.
This is the battle right here between third and fourth, between Brown and the 04 DXDT CrowdStrike Mercedes, and right there, Baptista in the Hublot Ferrari.
It's actually Colin Brown's home track, lives here in Texas, so he's had experience already this year in 2020 on this racetrack that has been resurfaced in certain areas.
Well, it didn't take long for Cal Marcelli to let people know who's fast here. He just set fast lap of the race at a 2:05.8. He just is so switched on in this Acura, isn't he, Marcelli?
You just get a comfort factor. You know, the setup's coming into the second year of competition with the same platform. And he's also up on the wheels. He knows they came into this year thinking they could repeat. And right now he's running fifth. So yeah. That was not how they drew it up, I guarantee you. So that pit stop really hurt them. He's got a lot of ground to make up. He needs a break. He needs a yellow, but we don't typically see a lot of yellows here at Circuit of the Americas because of the massive runoff areas and ability for drivers to make a little mistake and get away with it.
And as I was talking about Marcelli being switched on, Colin Brown just resets fast lap at a 2:05.856.
He was fastest here yesterday in practice. Didn't have a good qualifying run this morning, so he's out to make amends as well. He's got a lot of ground to make up to Bleekemolen, now he's some 9 seconds back.
Interesting to see what kind of times Baptista in the Hublot Ferrari can start to turn here at some point. Here's a look at Alan Metney in the Park Place Porsche, running in the AM category. A win and a pole in the GT Cup in Sprint X competition here a couple of years ago.
Bit of bodywork flap there. Off a little bit earlier in this race. Hopefully that doesn't come apart any further than it already has. This DXDT squad has really got a good handling car underneath Colin Brown. Now the car looks really balanced, really working well. This is hurting him though. He doesn't want to catch a driver through this section. That driver just can't hit the evaporate button. Sometimes there's nowhere to go. That was tight. That was tight, and this is really costing him.
Yep.
Baptista is not that far behind, and that will certainly cost Colin Brown. I bet the best part of a second right here. So the gap last time across the stripe was 2.6 seconds. We'll have to evaluate that again when we see him this time around, but Baptista is certainly a lot closer.
A lot closer, and as you said, down the road a lot farther now is one Jeroen Bleekemolen. With the pit stop windows complete, Hinman now on the hammer, things cycling in a little bit, just turning a 2:06.1, and is picking right up where Shelby Blackstock left off. And Ryan Marine, you've got to think John Meraki has got to be very pleased.
It sure would seem that way, John. Of course, the team owner for Racer's Edge. 2 cars under your tent here this year. Let's talk about the one that's leading right now. An exciting driver lineup there, and they have not disappointed, at least to this point.
No, not at all. I had high hopes for the silver-silver combination. I thought this was a really neat deal, a really neat package. So I'm really happy to have the 2 silvers that I do, and they're doing a great job.
And for Shelby, his first racing laps in the GT3 car, and he brings it in the lead. That's got to be a dream scenario.
It is, and it's amazing. I mean, what a terrific performance. He never drove this car at all until this weekend. Shows up, and here he is leading the race. It's a really strong performance. I'm really happy with what he's done.
And then your championship duo back in the other car. Martin had a good start, held his own, and Kyle's in the car now and is looking fast. Was there a bit of a hang-up on the pit stop, though, that has him a bit behind?
Well, we had to serve a penalty. So we had a penalty for some contact earlier that Martin was involved in. So we had a delay in the pit stop because we had to serve a penalty.
Well, a proven commodity behind the wheel in that pairing. High expectations, I have to assume, for them again.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We expect them to repeat as champions. No reason to expect otherwise.
All right, John, we'll let you get back to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
That team is just, I mean, both of us have been around that Racer's Edge program and Meraki for some time. But when they decided to make the step up to GT3, they did it with great confidence, great execution, and very quickly have gone from a initial program right up to a solid 2-car program.
Yeah, it's really impressive what they did last year and expanding this year, of course, and great explanation there. We just thought it was a bit of a snafu on pit lane, but if Martin had to serve maybe a 5-second stop and hold, that equates to why they're a little bit behind the 8 ball here. But it's early in the season, you just got to regroup here a little bit. They've got a strong starting position for tomorrow as well with Marcelli's qualifying performance this morning.
And Hinman now just setting fast lap at a 2:05.599.
Well, that's laying it down there.
Yes, it is. And that's a sizable margin. It's almost 14 seconds now that Hinman has over Bleekemolen. Brown, as we talked about, getting hung up just a little bit, lost a few seconds to Bleekemolen, and Baptista just continues to lurk back there, about 2 seconds adrift in that 4 spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's got the pace though now as things have settled in a little bit. It looks like Collins stretched that margin back out again on that last lap, Greg. He's now up to 3.8 seconds, so doesn't seem like that Ferrari of Baptista, it's got quite the speed of Colin on an outright fast lap. But certainly Colin Bryan can't afford to relax as we're focused now on Bleekemolen and the GMG Porsche running in second. 13.5 seconds back of our leader right now, but he won't give up. He'll know that any little problem there, he can suddenly be in the pound seats and take advantage of the rescue for our leader.
Speaking of fast guys in Porsches, I was just looking at what young Max Root was doing in the number 20 Wright Porsche. His last lap was a 2:06.5. I mean, that's getting after it for this young guy.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about this young man making this step up to GT3 competition. He's done some testing with Porsche. He's been very impressive. And they haven't had the best of days with that little incident with his teammate in qualifying that Max didn't get to run and qualify for the second race here this weekend. But even so, immediately you can see that the boy has pace. His best lap was only 2/10 off of a fellow Porsche.
And as you would expect when the pros get on board, we're seeing some really quick laps unfolding. But the 24 of Cresoni, the TR3 entry, he just turned a 2:05.9. And so these guys are starting to get seriously after it right now. Problem is, they just have a fair amount of ground that they're going to have to somehow make up, be able to get into the hunt for a big position battle here. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with AWS, with CrowdStrike, and with Optima Batteries. There is a look at Colin Brown as he comes down the hill. Then this is the Rich Beck number 6 entry, the AM car. There's Baptista sitting in that 4 spot overall, 3rd in Pro-Am. But quickly getting back to Max Root, that's an AM combination, he and Fred Poordad. And it's one of those deals, sometimes you just luck into a astonishingly quick AM driver, and it's your year.
Yes.
As a result of it. And that's what we might be seeing here, because he's, you know, when you're turning 2:06.5s as an AM.
Yeah, well, I think the series always reserves the right to make that grading adjustment after they see a race or two for some of the drivers who they're not that quite familiar with. So there's the FIA ranking, and then the series has the ability to give them a different grading themselves. So always up for adjustment. They certainly don't want to change someone's grading so it kills a Pro-Am entry, for example, but when it's AM, they can step up to the Pro-Am ranks maybe.
So when they downgrade a driver, it's called a derogation. So if they upgrade, is it a derogation?
It must be.
Double D.
Double D.
Look at Mr. Marcelli. This is just I think a great synergy in this car between he and Martin, and then just the atmosphere in the Racer's Edge program. But you've talked about it before, that Kyle went to Martin, who's, you know, has the Martin Barkey Performance Exhaust and some other companies, and said, you know, I'd like to have you, work with me, put a program together, and Sparky deferred and everything. And he said that he was just relentless in his approach. And didn't he finally say? He said, and he laid some stuff out, and I went, this makes really good sense.
Right. He's a really sharp young man, Kyle.
Yes,
he really works hard at his craft. He's another one of those amazing talents that you hope don't slip through there. He's still getting opportunities, but he hasn't been given that huge break. I mean, certainly running here is a great championship to be in, but he just continues to knock on the door whenever he's given the opportunity. He always puts in a brilliant performance.
That he does. Looking at some of the other cars in the field as we look at Jeff Westphal. He's somebody with some substantial pace. A couple of Ferraris having some fun out there. This is the one that is currently driven by Jeff Westphal, and it's really a great program. Opportunity for Trevor Beck to again learn from somebody who's really, really quick, and for Westphal an opportunity to not just instruct and bring somebody along, but also to show people that he's still got it, and he does.
He really does, running in 4 different sports car championships this year, won a GT4 championship here in North America last year. Just totally on top of his game. Does a really good job, great coach and mentor, and just the Beck family can really learn a lot from this young man.
No question about that. And currently running up in the 3rd place overall and has been throwing down some very fast laps. Colin Brown has taken over, as we note, the 04 CrowdStrike AWS Mercedes from George Kurtz. And Ryan, I think you tracked him down.
I did indeed, a former class champion in GT4 equipment in this series. Now, 2nd year up in GT World Challenge America. You got the Evo Mercedes, and it seems to be going well. How was your stint, and what have you seen out of Colin thus far?
Well, we had a great stint, and first, it was a great car with Mercedes, DXDT, CrowdStrike, and AWS. Very well prepared, very easy to drive, and we kept clicking off laps and put it in a good position for Colin.
You guys were hard at work last year, really laying the foundations, at least this is how Colin tells it, for this season. Just trying to get the laps, get the experience. Are you ready to take that next step now in your 2nd year in GT3 cars?
Yeah, I think last year was a learning year, 1st year in, and great news is we got a new car, a new Evo kit, and we put a lot of time in the off-season, did a bunch of 24-hour races with the Mercedes in various places, and we're excited for the season.
Can you compare and contrast the previous version of this car to the Evo that you're racing here this weekend?
Well, I think the Evo kit just makes it easier to drive. It's very well balanced. Mercedes did a great job on it. They put a lot of work into it, and I think it's just more refinement and keeps getting better and better.
Well, we got sunshine now, a lot different than how he qualified this morning. Is that good for the car, good for Colin as he tries to finish this thing out?
I think so. Qualification was a mixed bag. We went out on slicks in the rain, and we didn't qualify as well as we wanted to, but we got a good start. We put it in position, and there's no better guy than Colin out there.
Thanks so much, George.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly witnessed what Colin can do behind the wheel of a car, but George, and I'm glad that Ryan made that point, that George was a GTS AM champion and has shown good pace from the get-go on his way up. Big problem here. This is
the sister car here.
Yeah.
Brian Dial behind the wheel now. And George, when he won that GTS championship, 9 victories, I think it was, on the year. Just got the confidence going and seemed unbeatable, and then he got the racing momentum going his way also. This is a shame for David Askew. Had a brilliant start. You see him there in the background shaking his head. Some kind of bodywork issue. Right front, just behind the front wheel arch there. So Ryan's feeling something, maybe some kind of vibration, possibly at high speed.
My first time working on that right front, you remember up into turn 1, when he stuck his nose inside, I didn't think there was a touch, let alone a hard one. But now they're working, it's behind the wheel, and it certainly wasn't contact there. Unless something, sort of reverberated through, which stranger things have happened. Look here at this, another very, very talented driver here. It's great to have him in this championship, Matteo Cresoni.
Battle here between he and Westphal. This is for 5th position right now in Pro-Am.
And as we're watching here, the number 24 of Cresonia, you talked about the great battle that he and Westphal are having. Ryan, what are you hearing about the 63?
Yeah, it sounds like Ryan Dial was dealing with the vibration. He felt like it was coming from the splitter, so he decided to bring it to the attention of the crew. They examined it and ultimately made the decision that it was worth continuing. It wasn't going to be anything catastrophic, so sent it back out, and they're going to try and salvage something from this race.
All right, thanks. Well, now that makes a little bit of sense to me, because if there was a contact, it would have been on that splitter up there. And if it just delaminates a little bit, it can set it to vibrating, can it? So.
It certainly can, and the speeds that you're hitting around this racetrack, from a driver, it can get pretty violent in the car.
Yes, especially when you're up on the curbs and bounding around and the like. So now Ryan Dial, this is just sort of recovery mode, trying to get something in the way of points in his class. Be working hard to go after it and do just that. So as Hinman just continues to clock off these laps and build that margin up just a little bit. Well, I say just a little bit. He's been able to build it up relatively substantially, hasn't he, Cal? I mean, it's up to almost 16 seconds right now over Jerome Bleekemolen.
Yeah, I think the key for Trent is just managing this race. I mean, make sure that you can run those lap times he's doing, but without taking too much out of the tires. Because if you get a reset, again, we say yellows, full course yellows here at Circuit of the Americas are typically unlikely because of the runoff area, but for any reason you can suddenly get a reset, and you don't want to have no tires left to defend with in the last 5-10 minutes of this race. So yes, it's impressive, you're putting numbers on the board, but you got to think of the big picture and having something left at the end in case you get into a shootout.
He threw down a few quick laps right off the bat, including the fastest lap of the race, but since then he's just sort of consistently been in those low 206s. Do you think that he's found that balance right now?
Yeah, that could be the sweet spot where he feels that I can run this lap time, continue to stretch the lead a little bit, and not take too much out. So it's just as you're finally loading the car up through these high-speed corners, just give it up a little bit, just feel the car out. Got to watch that track limits. He's obviously not giving too much up by pushing the boundaries there a little bit through 19. Obviously work with the electronic aids a little bit, the traction control a little bit as the tire degradation does get a little bit worse later in the run to try and assist the acceleration power down coming off these corners. He's having fun, I guarantee you that.
Oh, without doubt. And you know, especially on his way to the GT3 championship he won last year in a different series. I mean, he gained so much experience in these cars, didn't he?
He does, and you know, he's a young man who's done some amazing things at such an early age, and was under the guidance of BMW for a while and slipped through that net. And I felt at the time it was a mistake, but they obviously had a lot of evaluation that they'd done, and it was Jesse Krohn who actually got the nod over Trent Hinman at that time, and Jesse just won the 24 Hours of Daytona recently, so they're both amazing talents. It was just they had one spot, and Jesse got the nod, but Trent has rebounded nicely, continued to keep his head down, and found himself in a bunch of different programs, and won that big championship last year.
Well, and this was one of those things, it almost shocks you a little bit, because I was thinking about how long have we been calling, you and I, the name Trent Hinman in racing? A lot of years. He's 24.
Well, it puts in perspective when John Edwards was teaching him.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, too. And that's sad to see as the number 63 goes behind the wall. Apparently the damage to that splitter just too much to deal with at this stage, and parking it for the day. Trent Hinman continues to lead. Bleekemolen, Brown, Baptista, and Marcelli as you take a look at the scoring graphic on the left side of the screen. There is Trent whistling through in the Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3, and just continuing to run those very consistent laps. It's almost like he's mirroring it in a way what Bleekemolen does. You see Bleekemolen dip into a low 206. Hinman responds, but then immediately drops back into the 206.2, well, now he gets a 205.9 because Bleekemolen went into that low 206 range. And just sort of this game of cat and mouse they've been playing, and obviously he's getting splits.
Yeah, for sure. John Maraki and the group will be giving him all of the information necessary. But again, I think he needs to manage it. I mean, there's no point. I mean, he's got a massive lead there. Even if he had a bundle of traffic on one lap, there's no way that Bleekemolen's going to be even near him in the same zip code. So he's got the margin. Just make sure you have something if there should be a reset at the end of this race. But track is warming up a little bit. Sun is breaking through finally for the day. And these conditions are ideal for these drivers out there on the circuit.
Obviously, you might love to be in a little bit more of a scrap, but yeah, in these conditions, it's just got to be just a joy just to drive this circuit.
Yeah, and I spoke to a team this week who were involved in running Jerome Bleekemolen in a different championship that competed here this year, and they said he was phenomenal at this circuit, just really good on these technical circuits like Circuit of the Americas. So he's in his sweet spot right here. He's already run earlier in the day in the GT4 Sprint X competition, so plenty of mileage under his belt and executing.
Do you think with Bleekemolen, his ability, you know that GMG car is set up, do you think if he really had to, he could be running really, really fast laps, but he's going, I'm leading my class, and that's what this is about, is these points here. Do you think he's just saying, I'm just doing what I have to do at this stage? As we take a look at a young man who is doing more than anybody could expect him to do, your leader in the AM class, the number 20, Wright Motorsports Porsche, in the hands of Max Root.
Yeah, this young man comes in with impressive credentials, predominantly in the Porsche GT3 Cup Championship, so he's got a lot of Porsche seat time, and just recently transitioned over to GT3 machinery with some testing. Ran in Bahrain last year and was at a big test at Sebring for Porsche just last weekend. So he's a man who's going places, and looking at his lap times, he's been running super consistent low sixes, about a couple of tenths off Bleekemolen's times, but absolutely on the money. Routine like clockwork, just keeps turning these laps. And when you look at his resume, I think he's had like 35 podiums out of 49 races or something during the course of his year. Doesn't make mistakes. I mean, it's as equally as impressive as the victories and the podiums is the fact of the lack of DNFs.
Yep. I mean, it's the old adage, but it is so true. To finish first, you have to finish. And if you go out and burn the car down or do things that are radically on the edge and have problems, that doesn't turn you into a really, really top flight driver very easily, does it? You need to have that match. Look at this here is working over Cosmo. It's almost like that the setup, they just haven't been able to get that car quite right.
Yeah, it's been a disappointing day, I'm sure, for the whole group. Patrick and Guy, you know, making the decision to go with the Capex squad for this year. With the car that had success last year, was knocking on the door of the championship all season long, had victories for both the 3 and the 9 car with Capex. And they'll just have to dust themselves off tonight, try and rebound tomorrow even.
Well, they're certainly capable of it. I mean, there's plenty of times we have seen that a team that struggles in the first race hits that setup beautifully for the second race or solves whatever issue it is and are right back in the game. So they're capable of doing it here. We would expect nothing less from a team as capable as Capex Racing. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Pirelli, with Rebellion timepieces, and with Total. There is Hinman as he continues to clock him off as we're closing in on 16 minutes to go here in this opening round of the GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Bleekemolen second, Braun third, Marcelli fourth, but that, or Baptista third, Marcelli fourth, but that is in the Bleekemolen, Braun, Baptista, Marcelli, Personi. That's top 5 in Pro-Am. Hinman and Blackstock lead in the silver category. Max Root, comfortable margin right now in the AM class, and just another solid run by Alan Metney in that number 73 Park Place Porsche that really started on their back foot a little bit, missed the first practice session completely, and at this caliber, everybody else is out there putting laps in and dialing cars up, you miss one session, it can really affect you.
It really can. And getting back to the performance of the 8 K-Pax machine with Guy Cosmo behind the wheel, let's put it in perspective. Guy Cosmo never drove that car until this week. He was not involved in the single test day that they did with Patrick Byrne at Sonoma last month. So there's a lot to throw at you. I mean, the level of competition is extremely high. So they may be treating this weekend as a little bit of a testing session as well in terms of getting everyone up to speed and familiar with the machinery.
Good solid look here at Bleekemolen in the number 14 Global Motorsports Group Mobil 1 Thermal Porsche. I just thought the graphics package on this car, when they debuted it last year, when James and I think it was Dirk Werner showed up and ran, and it was just eye-catching.
It really is, and it's a wonderful race car. I mean, talking to Brad Kettler, who's had so much experience with sports cars over the years. He's engineering the car this weekend. Been involved in 6 Le Mans victories over his tenure in motorsports, but he said, this is a great car to work on. I just love being able to, you know, keep working on it, tweaking on it, making the car a little bit better. He's really impressed with what Porsche has put out with this GT3 car.
Well, and with the FIA homologation, the way that they do it, where everything is so restricted, if you will, in terms of, you know, what you can do to the car. You can't modify stuff. You can't do anything like that. Then the magic comes in refining setups. And you get somebody with that has Brad Kettler's knowledge to be able to tweak and you know, work on rebound and this and that and everything and just get that thing sweet. And that's the kind of challenge that guys like Kettler just dig into and relish.
Oh, he loves it. He's showing me the Pirelli P-books, as they're called, in terms of what the tire will do and the slightly different configuration and construction of the tire. He's totally engrossed.
Jerome Bleekemolen sitting in the 2nd place overall here at Circuit of the Americas and GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, but leading in the Pro-Am category. And he is putting on a tremendous drive in that Cordy as well. And as we watch Bleekemolen, the guy who put this car on pole and drove the opening stint, is with Ryan.
Long-time participant in this series, James Sofronis, pole sitter, car running first in class still, 2nd overall at the moment with Jerome Bleekemolen driving. Is he driving to a number with the focus being on the class rather than the overall at this point?
I mean, we definitely wanted to go for the overall win, but for the most part, you know, we didn't have it after the pit stop. I got caught out a little bit in the middle of my stint, then crept up, but we had too much of a gap, so now it's about winning the Pro-Am class. And, you know, Jerome's a masterful pro, so he knows what he's doing out there. The car's under him. He's just pacing it to the end. We don't have enough time to catch first. We just want to secure 2nd overall in P1 in class.
In addition to your driving, you're awfully busy this weekend just overseeing this mini empire that is GMG Racing. How many cars, how many classes are you involved in this weekend, with more to come when GT Sports Club comes online?
Yeah, we have 5 cars this weekend, 25 crew members, a lot of support staff, an amazing group here. And it does take a well-managed team here, and guys like Joe Foster and then Brad Kettler and my team back at the shop in California. We were planning this over the winter with the SRO Winter Series, and it really gave us a chance to prepare ourselves. And a lot of support. You know, Porsche and Audi have both really come on strong to support our efforts in GT4, GT4 Sprint X, and now GT3. And we're really excited for the GT2 class coming up at PIR.
And you mentioned the Winter Series as well. I think you were a big proponent of that to begin with, and GMG was certainly heavily involved. What has that meant, though? No real off-season for you guys this year. A lot of racing even through the winter months.
Well, it gave our new guys a chance to, you know, dip their toe in the water. And if you haven't been to the Thermal Club, it's an amazing facility. It really spoils you. It's a country club for motor sport enthusiasts. And I've been a member there for many years, and a lot of my new clients train there and they test there. And it's a great facility to do that. And plus, it's only 2 hours from our shop. So the Winter Series was a great opportunity for guys to really get a feel for the SRO series, you know, the Pro class, the AM class, and it really gave them an opportunity to look at the different classes, what fit their needs and their goals. And that's kind of what I do. I sit down with a client, and they pretty much tell me what their goals are, and I formulate a plan. And this GT2 class has been a perfect addition. And we have 5 of these Porsches in our shop. And so we're excited to get those running at VIR.
Well, your plan for this race is going quite well as well. Leading in class. Thank you so much, James.
That's right.
That's a good point about the Thermal Club. You know, James was probably a factor in making that happen because of his connections there. But, you know, like bringing in new crew members because of the expansion of the program and bringing in a Kettler and all that, that gave them an off-season opportunity to tweak in race conditions and learn things a little bit. And a bit earlier we were talking about just the mindset of a Brad Kettler and his technical a bit. I remember once when I was calling the studio host for MotoGP, and he watches it, he loves it, so we were talking about it at a race, and he got into an in-depth discussion with me, telling me about how traction control and MotoGP bikes work, and he was almost drooling. You know, he is just so into it.
Yeah. He totally immerses himself in the technical side of the sport and has a great racing brain as well, so it's a great asset for James Sofronis and that whole group to have in their camp on a regular basis. And you know, and he talked about the Masterville Jerome Bleekemolen, and his lap times have been so impressive, just consistently within about a 0.3 of a second bracket throughout the course of this stint. So he's just doing a tremendous job. Ooh, that was close there.
Well, this isn't for a class battle. Westphal running in the Pro-Am, obviously, Root in the Am. But they're both being very aggressive, but whenever one gets the nose inside, the other one opens the wheel up just a little bit.
We talk about Max Root's performances and his consistency and lack of DNFs. This is going to be put to the test here in terms of how badly he wants this position, even though it's not for the class win here this afternoon.
They come out of turn 20, and that little bit of an exchange. Max backed off. We'll see if he goes back into attack mode here. That's a really good point here. This is where you find out when a young driver is, do you understand, are you capable of big picture thinking, essentially, right?
What's the dynamic? What are you looking to achieve here? You know, he's a young driver. He wants to put in the lap times. He wants to get as far up the field as he can. But what are the team's objectives? What are the targets for the season? I mean, right now they've rebounded from an incident in qualifying with his teammate to be leading their class. He's got some good lap times underneath his feet already here today. But now he's up against a very experienced driver in Jeff Westphal right in front of him in a fast Ferrari. How badly do you need to get this position, or how much risk do you take to get this position?
Well, he's running him right back down again, but again, it's one thing to catch him, the other thing to pass him. Up front, Hinman continues to lead, and he's keeps those times right about the 2:06 margin here. Root's best lap at 2:06.2. That's impressive. Nope, no question about that.
Does he do here? Does he flick it to the inside? Thinks better of it. He's kind of hovering right now in the shadows, but not a legitimate move for a pass right there. Just feeling them out, just to see if there's a weak spot. Is there a chink in Jeff Westphal's armor right now where I can take advantage? I think this is where he thinks he can maybe tuck it to the inside right here. But again, he's not overcommitting, just being patient. I like to see this in a young driver.
I do too. And the last time they were in that very same section of track, Jeff left that door open a little bit more, and Max got the nose there just for a second, and so the next time through, that gives you, Jeff just covered it a little bit more circumspectly.
He's not being super conservative, like he's not even going to attempt to pass, but he's just being circumspect about it. He's not just diving in there and taking unnecessary risks. This is a great test for him right now.
He's driven a brilliant stint thus far, as we're under 7 minutes to go here in this opening round of the championship. Now he flicks it straight to the apex here, but Westphal just floats speed, but leaves that door open just enough to avoid any potential conflict. Max realizes he helped him out there and gives him the same room as well. Wonderful battle for 7th overall here. Two different class competitors. The yellow Ferrari, the number 7 from Vital Speed, Pro-Am competitor Jeff Westphal. And right behind him in the number 20 car, sitting 8th overall, leading in the AM category, the Right Motorsport Porsche, young Max Root. This has been an interesting study of the veteran and the rookie seeing just how this is going to play out. It's kind of interesting.
It really is. It seems like Max has a little bit more pace than Jeff in front of him, but Jeff is using all of his ounces of experience here to hold him at bay. And Max is not taking the bait in terms of overcommitting. So it's been a nice disciplined drive by Max Root, the young man who we knew came into this race with impressive credentials. How would he step up to GT3 competition? Now he looks to the inside. How much does he force it? No, backs out again. Seems like Westphal has got really good braking ability with that Ferrari, even though he runs a little bit wide there, loses a little bit of exit speed. Max Root to the inside. Now he claims the position. That was nice, clean driving. No risk. Just really bided his time. Now it's time to get the hammer down. Take that pressure off immediately if you can. He seems to be doing that.
Yep. Try and create an immediate gap so you don't have to worry about any kind of a counter move.
So Jeff was just sort of like taking that Ferrari in super deep into that brake zone for turn 12. He washed out a little bit wide, and Max was just sitting there without any risk, just got it to the inside. Didn't want to potentially lose that class lead, but nonetheless, he's scooting down the road immediately.
And in so doing, he has carried us to under 5 minutes to go. This opening round of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS here at Circuit of the Americas. And for those of you that have watched this championship last year, the car you just saw make the pass in the hands of Max Root is one you've seen race before in this series, hasn't it? The hands of Pat Long and Scott Hargrove. My understanding it's the same chassis that they are using. Here now is the number 80 of Kyle Marcelli, sitting 4th in the Pro-Am category, 5th overall. That's Rodrigo Baptista. 4th overall, 3rd in the Pro-Am category.
And at one point we were thinking that maybe Baptista could take a run at Colin Brown, but that's not really developed. Solidified that 3rd position in class, 4th overall, but certainly Colin has extended that gap up to a comfortable margin now.
And Colin, a 2:05.7 for his best lap in this race, compared to Baptista's 2:06.1. So Colin, I think that even with a new Evo kit, which changes the dynamic of the car a little bit, just that year under their belt, and as George said, with all of the other stuff that they've done here in terms of testing and running 24-hour races, just that familiarity now is starting to play.
Yeah, certainly. And for Baptista, he can't afford to relax too much. I mean, time is on his side. There's only 3 minutes left on the board here. But Marcelli has certainly been digging deep here since he climbed aboard. They had that little penalty to serve for Martin Barkey after he made his pit stop, which dropped them well down the order. So the Pro-Am champions from last year are grinding away here. The gap between he and Baptista is only just under 5 seconds, and Marcelli's been running laps almost a second faster than Baptista. So I think if there's 10 minutes left, he'd certainly have a shot at it, but I think he's going to run out of time.
Yeah, 2.5 minutes remaining through turn 10. Crucial turn into turn 11 to get the power down for the longest straight here at Circuit of the Americas. So we watch Hinman work his way through another last lap, 2:06 flat. He is just, it's a metronome.
Yeah, this has been a dominant performance, and it really puts into perspective what a good silver lineup can do here.
Absolutely.
And there's a little chink in the armor, or a crack in the door in terms of the regulations, and John Meraki has certainly taken advantage of it with this driver pairing, and able to take potentially the 1st overall victory of the season.
We are on our final lap. So Hinman, along with Shelby Blackstock, looking awfully strong right now. 20 seconds clear of Jerome Bleekemolen. Colin Brown, that last lap, yeah, just
Was it 4? I thought it was 3.
it's about 7 seconds adrift of Braun, then Baptista and Marcelli and Crisoni. Behind Hinman, that would be the next 5 would be your Pro-Am, and then your Am leader, Max Root, in the number 20 machine. But this has been almost clinical, isn't it, in the execution here?
It has. It's been really strong. I mean, Hinman will have the pole for the race here tomorrow. His teammate Shelby Blackstock grabbed the outside pole here today and drove a brilliant opening stint, getting the lead early from Sofronis, who resisted for a handful of laps there, then gave it up before turning the car over to his teammate here, Jerome Bleekemolen. Good points here and potential Pro-Am victory for the GMG group. Nice start to the year.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in this car, Shelby drove brilliantly, Trent's driven brilliantly. The crew executed that stop. It was, what, 1.5 seconds over, little safety margin. They knew they had a big lead at that point. I mean, they've just done it right. Now they've got 5 corners to go. Neat sequence here on this track. Now into turn 19. Don't run too wide here. All right, 1 corner to go and on to the front straight. Acura, Racer's Edge, Blackstock and Hinman win at Circuit of the Americas, the silver duo. Laying down some brilliant laps. Great performance by the team in total. And here comes Jerome Bleekemolen. As you said, a great performance for GMG. Big deal in terms of the points for the Pro-Am category. And it'd be nice if they, with this win, say, you know, maybe we just need to keep coming here and keep going. It's such an amazing team for this championship. Colin Brown next through. Here's this little battle you were talking about, Cal.
Yeah, it really got close here. This last lap. He didn't need 10 minutes, maybe he just needed 5, Carl Marcelli, to be on the tail of that Ferrari of Baptista. But nice strong run for the Hublot group.
It was, for sure. Baptista comes through, and that margin, yeah, 1.2 essentially, right at the end. Now that could have been Baptista just managing it, but nonetheless a good run. And then one of the impressive rides here certainly is car that's just coming into frame right there, Max Root, living up to all the hype and the expectation and doing it with great smarts.
Yeah, it's very impressive. I mean, wasn't their ideal day, the way they scripted it with a problem in qualifying for his teammate Fred Pordad, but collectively they rebound nicely here today in race competition for a brilliant victory.
There it is. As they flash through in the Wright Motorsports Porsche, then Westphal coming through. Russell Ward would be next up, then Cosmo. And look at that, nice job there as Brown cups up. Says, congratulations to you guys. We'll get you next time. Yeah, surprisingly close here for Baptista and Marcelli. And it was a 2:09.9 for Baptista on that last lap.
Yeah, I think as you said, he's probably just managing it unless he had a major issue. He's been running 2:07 flats with his lap time, so, and he had about a 5-second gap, which obviously got erased pretty much there on that last lap. But I think with a few more minutes on the board, without that penalty that they had to serve during their pit stop exchange, it could have been a different story. So you know that the Race's Edge group will be pleased with today with the overall win, the silver win. But I think for the 80 squad, they'll be licking their wounds a little bit. I think they anticipate it to be a bit further up the order here by the end of the day.
And I think the Kurtz Brown run up into second in class, third overall, George really seemed to have acclimated a bit to this car. Colin, with that year of experience and tweaking on this car, really seems to have hit his stride a little bit too. Was throwing down some very impressive laps as well. I was impressed by that whole performance for sure.
Yeah, and I think tomorrow's race will be fascinating when you see these finishing drivers start the race tomorrow without any gaps between them.
Yes.
This is going to be fun. The likes of Hinman, Bleekemolen, Brown, Baptista, Marcelli, Cressoni, and Max Root. What does Max Root do from the back of the grid tomorrow? How far can he get up with his charge through the field, which you'll anticipate?
That's a really good point. Into pit lane now after their cool down lap, led by Hinman. And the rest of the field. To this absolutely beautiful facility here, making their way to pit lane. Take a look, that is the tower back there, so iconic. And we take a look at the results here from this first race of the championship. It's all sort of laid out to you there, and that's not too bad. An AM pairing finishing 7th overall, middle of the field. Pretty good.
Really good. Yes. See how long Max can keep that AM status.
Yeah. It's a very good point. And obviously for Ryan Dial and David Askew, that a little bit of damage to the splitter that was just too much to deal with. Sad they didn't get a chance to finish, but they'll be back tomorrow as well. We take a look at the results here, and just that silver-silver pairing that this class opened the opportunity up for. And I like the way you put it. John Meraki looked at it and said, well, I think we could do something with this. Boy, did they.
They really did. A very strong driver lineup, a great race car underneath them, and everyone executed to perfection. Great victory on the opening round of this championship season.
And as we've said before, the best part about this is we get to do it all again tomorrow and to watch what unfolds, and it's going to be good. And with that, let's get down to Ryan Marine with our winners.
Posing for some more photos. We'll step in here in just a second. Shelby Blackstock, your first race in GT World Challenge America. You're already a race winner. How cool is that?
It's a pretty good feeling. I mean, right at the green flag, we knew we had a really good car. Obviously, we had a great car in qualifying. We continued to make tweaks and changes in after the green flag. Wow, it's probably the best car I've ever driven. It really just drove itself. We just kind of let it do its thing. So huge hats off to the whole team, Racer's Edge, Acura. I mean, it's been an amazing day.
Sets the bar high for the rest of the season.
Exactly.
Hey, Trent, we were chatting earlier in the weekend. We expect more Silver Cup cars later in the season, but for now, when it is just you in class, overall wins, that's what you're after, and that's what you got.
Well, even with more Silver Cup cars in the category, we're still going to be pushing for overall wins, but big hats off to Shelby here. His first GT3 race, taking home a win. I don't think many people can say that, so he really did a hell of a job out there. Big thanks to Racer's Edge Motorsports, Acura Accelerated Service. I mean, we're really blessed, really honored to be here, and we're going to keep pushing over for more of those overall wins. Sorry.
Well done. We'll see you tomorrow in race 2.
See you then.
Thank you.
Yeah, how do you top this?
Do it again tomorrow.
Okay, just add to it. You don't top it, you just keep adding to it, I suppose. Yeah. Here's a look at first time we've seen him without a helmet on here in our coverage here this weekend is Jerome Berlicamal. Of course, he's just going to look at his back, I guess, but very special talent there, having a chat with James Sofronis. And they win their class, obviously. And started from the pole. They were ready to do it, but as James said, it was just not quite there when they took off, and then they just changed their focus, and that's something that savvy race drivers do. And Ryan has found them.
That's right. Second overall, Pro-Am winners as well. James, a great way to get the season started. Even if this might not be full-time, it's always good to bring home a win to kick off 2020.
Well, it's the beginning of the season, so it's always a good way to start with a win. I mean, obviously having Jerome as your teammate is a nice ace in the hole. So for us, the guys did a great job. The car was prepared flawless. Every session worked out well. We got a little behind at the mid part of the race, but we proved that we could run up front. And then I knew giving the car to Jerome, it would only go forward and faster. And, we didn't have quite enough for the Acuras. They definitely have the top speed here, but the Porsche was flawless. I mean, the car's strong. You hit a lot of curbs around here, and this thing didn't skip a beat. But I want to say hi to Jensen and the family at home. Miss you, bud.
And for you, Jerome, I know you're chasing that Porsche Cup, so any points, any wins presumably help you in that chase. Is that right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, second place is great. Obviously, we came to win, but yeah, we were a little short of the Acura today. They had a great car, but so was ours. I really had a good time out there. It's fun, it's like James said, a lot of curbs, and the car is strong, and you can really push it. So I had a great time out there.
Got a chance to do it all again tomorrow. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's the good part. We've said it many times about our job too. Is they get to go out and drive it. We get to sit and enjoy it as well when they do it with these doubleheader weekends. And wonder what they're going to tweak on in that car to see if they can get after it.
Well, it's all about fine-tuning, chasing the racetrack a little bit as it evolves over the course of a race weekend as it rubbers in. But I think they'll maybe be wondering, should they have taken that gamble? Remembering qualifying with Bleekemolen, and they went on slicks in that damp racetrack and ended up kind of middle of the pack. So they've got some work to do tomorrow.
That's a very good point. Would have been, I think it was a good risk. They needed to do it a lap or two sooner to let him get in and get it done, but not to be. So they'll just have to pull a little rabbit out of the hat tomorrow. So as we're starting to see some serious blue sky appear. We saw little dips of sun here and there during the course of that race. The shadows would appear around the race cars, but starting to get a little bit nicer out there, and that's great. Obviously, a challenging place, but a fun place to start off a championship. And just the fact that we go from this bit of a break after we get done tomorrow for the GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, to the next round in May. In Canada, but a lot of racing action that unfolded here, and had some really great stuff to watch, to talk about, and some amazing drives. And from Paul Sofronis, able to get to the lead. We were wondering, is he going to be able to drive away? Will he be able to hang on to it? And had some great racing that unfolded back in the pack as well. And this was a little bit of a moment here when the number 33 Mercedes got underneath Patrick Byrne in the Bentley. And he was lucky to not get collected, and they were able to go after it again. But just some good close quarter racing that we saw all around this track.
It was a little bit later in the race. Patrick Byrne able to return the favor there and get around the Mercedes. This is a great battle here between Jeff Westphal and young Max Root. Max finally making his way through. It was a battle for overall, not for the class position. This one was thwarted, but a little bit later in the race, he managed to get the pass down and grab the end victory.
And then onto the front straight, claiming the win, was Trent Hillman with Shelby Blackstock, and there's the hug as Trent got out of the car in the pits for Racer's Edge, and they were able to put together the first win of the season. As no better way to start off a championship run, and that they were able to do, and do with great aplomb. Now we're looking at the weather for tomorrow. It's not supposed to. We're not supposed to have any kind of rain, and the temperature's supposed to actually be up just a little bit. Nothing's huge, but I don't know what else they can do to these cars other than just little bits of massaging to have them ready for that. It's not like there's something big they can do.
Well, it's a continuation. I mean, you continue to tune on a race car, whether it's through the course of a test day or through the course of a weekend. So you anticipate them making positive changes, getting used to this racetrack. As you can see, it's been resurfaced in certain areas, so they're building on that notebook. Ambient temperature looks to be up. We didn't anticipate rain this morning, but we got some, so who knows what to expect for tomorrow.
Absolutely, and you can see there you've got the grooming going on out at the track, just trying to make sure that some of the marbles are nice and clear. Look from the iconic turn one here back at the grandstand area in the pit straight, and the famous tower here, the amphitheater behind it. You see behind the tower there's that sort of flat white awning with the orange trim on it. It's a beautiful theater for performances and concerts and the like here. Very popular indeed. They also have a way over right as you get right before turn 12. They have a way to create a huge stadium seating section over there for even bigger shows. And the grandstand seating out there to the left. This is one of the press releases referred to this place, Cal, as palatial, and I think that was a pretty good way to put it.
It's an amazing facility. It's a great racetrack. Just wonderful to show up here and showcase to the world for the U.S. Grand Prix, of course. And we're fortunate enough to visit here with SRO. So it's always great to come back. Weather is not always the kindest. We had a pretty good day. Some drizzle this morning. Got a little bit nippy, a little sharp, but in terms of the temperatures. But still a great day for racing.
Absolutely was, and put on a great show to be sure. And that Racer's Edge team, they were just clicking right from the off here. In this day of racing at this beautiful facility. It's always a busy weekend, obviously, because there's a lot of different classes and categories that run here. And so for the people that come out and watch, it's just chock full of great racing to keep an eye on here in a variety of different categories, and that's what makes these weekends special.
Yeah, we're only halfway through the action today, so we've got a lot more races to go here today, so certainly keep the crowd on their feet.
And obviously at this stage, everybody getting ready to head over to the podium and be ready to do some celebrating there. first of the doubleheader weekends, you always wonder who's going to be willing to spray the champagne and enjoy the stinky race suit tomorrow. But sometimes when you win like that, you just decide, to heck with it. That's what we're here for. Let's live dangerously and have some fun. But again, double header here, and then we talked about for the schedule here a little bit of a break, then CTMP. So from one great track to another, and very, very different. And that's one of the great challenges of any championship that runs on a variety of tracks, is you've got to have a car that will work at each place. Yes, the BOP allows for automatic adjustments for various track types, but you still have to figure out how to maximize what that BOP is giving you.
Yeah, you do. I mean, there'll be tracks where you're frustrated because it doesn't quite suit your race car, and every race team, every driver wants to win every weekend, so there'll always be those who are saying, well, we don't have the performance that we should have in terms of the regulations. But this weekend, it seemed like so many of the manufacturers had potential to win. This is a great performance by Colin Brown. George Kurtz stepping on the podium with their Mercedes AMG. Only received that car about a week ago, so it's a very strong opening round to the championship for these two.
Yeah, absolutely, and what they're doing, they do an overall podium, then they do the class podiums, and that's why we're seeing, even though they finished second in class, Colin Brown and George Kurtz being introduced as the third-place finishers. Overall, that's not too bad. And the very, very experienced pairing of Safronis and Bleekemolen with that second-place finish. And the introduction, of course, for our overall race winners. There they are, Blackstock, Hinman, and Racer's Edge.
Well done to our overall podium finishers for race number 1. Let's hold those trophies up high. Big smiles. Great job, and here comes the champagne. Our overall podium finishers for GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, George Kurtz, Colin Braun, James Safronis, Jerome Bleekemolen, Trent Hidman, and Shelby Blackstock taking victory.
I do, as a matter of fact. I heard the invitation.
Up next is our Pro-Am podium.
Take you up on it.
Finishing in the 3rd position, driving for Squadra Corsa in the Ferrari 480 GT3, Rodrigo Baptista and Martin Fuentes.
I come here a lot. Send me a second. You got it. I really. Here, good to see you.
And in the 2nd position, we want to welcome back DXDT Racing's Colin Braun and George Kurtz. And taking victory for GMG Racing in the Porsche 911 GT3 are James Safronis and Jerome Bleekemolen. Well done. Let's hold those trophies up high and get some great photos.
So there is your Pro-Am top 3, the podium and Pro-Am. And I'll tell you what, it is first race. Everybody doing an absolutely great job. They've got that first one under their belts now. Now it's an opportunity for them to tweak and massage on those cars just a little bit here. And then we come back tomorrow and see if things just get a little bit closer, a little bit more intense, as you would expect. And then that launches us into a great season of racing, with everybody once again having the opportunity to understand things just a little bit better. And let's not forget, all these teams, even with the test days that they had here, there was a new tire compound, a new Pirelli P0 slick that every team everybody's been very high on the performance of the tire, solving some of the concerns that every team will always have about, hey, we'd like a little more of this, a little more of that, and they were getting it and like the performance of it, but it's new. And so now having a long, full race on those tires and on those cars. They have that understanding to now be able to take all that data, massage it a little bit, and put it together. So looking forward to seeing that unfold. And it was some exciting racing. We had that massive move or attempt by Ziad Gandour in that black TR3 Ferrari up into the first turn to try and get it done there. But Sofronis was able to hang on with Blackstock in second, and the rest of the field streaming through. This moment here, when Bryce Ward got down the inside of Patrick Byrne, they touched at the apex at 20. Byrne went around, lit it up. No other cars contacting him, got away with that one, and then was able to make this move on Ward as he just read it perfectly, sliced through, and was able to pick that spot up. Late in the race, Jeff Westphal in the Pro-Am Ferrari up against Max Root in the Am Porsche. Had a great duel that eventually went to Max Root. Really put together some great stuff, and then at the end, it was the Racer's Edge Acura of Trent Hinman bringing it home after Blackstock started to win the first round of this great championship. All right, as we are set to go for the opening round of the TC America Championship, for the first time, all three classes running together. Here is your TCR field, and they are coming up. Remember, green flag here at Circuit of the Americas comes a little bit farther down the front.